Hello again. Today I'm going to be making another figuring out my fears video. A little bit tired this time, and this one is also going to be a tad bit more off the cuff because honestly I don't know if this one fully fits within the questions I have, or really maybe I just want to explore it a bit more freely than the confines had, which I guess I could just rant on at the end, but it's not something I really want to do. I also forgot to schedule this one, so that's one of the reasons why this is so much more off the cuff. Not to mention, I just didn't have, I guess, anything this week or this month, and it kind of came up most recently, so kind of just, stuck doing this. But anywho, let's get on to the actual topic. Um, the fear I would like to dive into today is the fear of making nothing of myself. Sort of, I don't know how to quite describe it in smaller terms or a smaller term. Again, probably a little bit of research would help there, but this is mostly off the cuff. As I said, and as you could probably understand why, I think a lot of people are afraid of not making, well, anything of themselves. Especially for me, as of recently, across not just across this series, even before this series, before I even started making videos. To clarify, not just this series. I kind of always struggled with this. Even in school, I kind of struggled with it, but in school, it was pushed further into the back of my mind, and I just didn't focus on it nearly as much. But here, now that I've done a big journey and changed who I am, hell, I am actually doing better. I'm actually going into like college classes. You know, even if it's online, it's still a small step towards actually interacting with other people. It's something, and that's a lot more than that's a lot more than what I previously had, which was nothing. I've actually started to, well, you know, make myself into something. But I never entirely thought about this fear, at least not until recently. And it's actually kind of the main reason I have so much paranoia right now. If things aren't immediately defined, I just start overthinking and, I get in my head. And unhealthy habits, but it still happens nonetheless. I don't need to give examples here. I think I've given enough examples in my weekly checkup videos. If you want to know more, check those out. Although they're pretty long, so I don't know. Put them at like 2 times speed because I meander and spend a long time with uhs and pauses a lot. Bad habit. At least the part. I think the pauses is at least a little better, but it might be time to actually learn how to edit these so I can kind of cut out like dead space or maybe just make these go a little faster, more concise. But I guess when I started both this and the other one, I wanted to keep it genuine. So that side tangent aside, this has been the main crux, I think is the right word, behind the current paranoia I feel. It's not necessarily paranoia in the sense that other people are attacking me, but rather paranoia in the idea that I'm not doing enough. Which, funnily enough, I also had in my last 2 years of high school as well. Um, I would consistently overthink, although I'd say now I have. sort of infused the habit of overacting or checking too much. Whereas when I had this paranoia in high school, I just did nothing, which also carried over into the following years after high school, where, well, I did nothing. um, I think the the videos that I have on this channel already illustrates that rather well. Um, there it is. But yeah, it is generally the crux of why I am paranoid. It's it's tough to deal with. Paranoia, I mean. I don't really know what to do about it. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure what to do about, well, a fear of making nothing of myself. If I had to go a little further into it, I mean, part of it obviously stems from, I think, the fear that not really my mom, but definitely my dad instilled in me by, I guess it's hard to explain. I never really thought about talking about it, and this is the first time I'm actually considering it, and it's a lot more difficult than I anticipated. Um, he would consistently badger me about getting a job, about my future, even when I was really young. It was always a thing that he's been talking about, which I suppose I can't blame him for. He's a father. Even in his twisted way, he worries about his son and he wants his future to be secure. I understand that. But I think it had the unintentional effect of instilling the fear that I'm not good enough, that I'm going to make nothing out of myself. I think this also stems from an insecurity that I've actually recently discovered that I had. People tell you you're gifted at a really young age, like, oh, you're really smart. And you just kind of think that's enough. But then soon after, you realize that no, that's not enough, and it never will be enough. And because nobody really encouraged you to work hard, they just said, well, you got it in you, kid. It's in your blood. You're just that smart. It kind of it kind of stunts you. I don't think this applies to maybe everybody. I'm sure somebody out there can relate to this, but my parents were supportive in my opinion the wrong ways. I think they I'm not going to blame them for this, but I think they tried to encourage me by saying that I have an inherent intelligence to me. I have an inherent aptitude that nobody else has, or I'm a part of an upper echelon of kids, which, one, wasn't really true. I think people just thought I was autistic, which, to be fair, I probably am to a lesser degree. I don't really want to get it diagnosed, though. I don't really see much of a reason to it. I'm perfectly functioning. It's just, At most, I really think I might have like ADHD, and that's pretty much it. But because of this, because of maybe stuff like that, I was given the impression that I'm special. I'm I'm more than everyone else. I'm better than everyone else. And I don't have to work. There's this inherent arrogance, but alongside that arrogance was this inherent fear. A fear that probably blossomed a lot sooner than I thought, and I just never fully realized. You're a kid. You don't really process a lot of emotions, a lot of complex emotions that early. They just kind of happen to you. And yeah, uh, I remember feeling that arrogance, which is why it kind of hurts me to look back on it. I may not have perfect memories of my time in elementary school or really even my time in middle school, but I do remember decently how I feel. Not even decently. I remember really well how I felt. Um, and yeah, thinking back on it, that fear was always there. The fear of being nothing. You know, when you're told you're special, you don't want to be nothing. And strangely enough, that fear that ended up unintentionally being embedded in me actually turned me into nothing for a bit. It turned me into a puppet, a sleep slave, something that can be molded and controlled by other people. There are probably some other reasons as to why I have this fear as well. You know, unrestricted internet access. Frankly speaking, some rather lazy parents when it comes to actually parenting. I'm not talking about like helping with homework. They just they didn't seem to offer much guidance. And particularly when it came to my dad, the guidance came in the form of a lecture where he ranted to me about his frustrations and ended up going into a fucking yelling fit. So, naturally, none of the information came across, none of it got into me. I just kind of deflected it off, and it, yeah, just overall messy parenting, um, unrestricted internet access at an incredibly young age. It kind of led up to this being. I hesitate to even call it a self because I don't think there was a self. I don't think there was an identity. I don't think there was anything. It was just a body that looked like maybe a younger me, or maybe he looked similar now, but it was something that resembled me that just kind of went around and existed, went through the motions, had no real ounce of critical thought. And I think scariest part out of that is what was keeping me as nothing was me coping, me wanting to think that, well, I'm doing certain things that allow me to learn more, and thus I am something. And while I don't necessarily entirely disagree, there's plenty that I watched and interacted with during that time that I still interact with now and still really enjoy now. But I'm also realizing, one, how little I remember from that, at least like year, maybe 2 years spent as nothing, as well as how much I just didn't feel anything. Even from the content and videos and whatever that I did watch, I don't really feel anything. I never really had. It's kind of like this massive blank spot. It feels like if I was asked, what about this gap? I wouldn't be able to answer what they'd have to say for, at the very least, a year and a half worth of that time. For this, I could say, well, I was rehabilitating myself because I realized that I was a reclusive, toxic person who needed a bit of restructuring to make himself more compatible with the other people that exist on this planet. I could at least answer with that if I were being truthful, of course, which, if it's a fucking job interview, I'm probably not going to be truthful. But if I was being truthful, I could account for that. But everything that came before that, I don't even have like any memories of the feelings I had then, which leads me to believe I was feeling nothing. There was true emptiness there. It scares the shit out of me because, I mean, ostensibly, I was nothing. There was nothing there. One, this fear obviously can be kind of stemmed Or the fear propping back up can be stemmed from, well, these videos, the figuring out my fears, and the weekly checkups, and hell, by extension, even the journal I've started taking. They're all in an effort to make something of myself, and so far, even if I don't feel super compatible with the society around me or the world around me, it's it's the only way I it's the only way I feel like I can at the very least make something of myself. Just being capable of interacting with it. Which, again, still not capable yet, but I'm working towards it. I am I am working towards it. And I do think, as of right now, that's where that fear gets intensified. That's where that paranoia starts to take hold. That's where the overacting, or really just overchecking, ends up becoming an issue. Because keep, I keep looking and looking just so that I could never possibly fall behind. But, I mean, if I look tired in this video, it's because I am. I am very tired. It's only 10 o'clock, and while I have been going to bed a little earlier, unintentionally, mind you, I have been much more tired. This is unusual. Like, this level of fatigue is unusual, and with it being like the first day of the classes that I'm taking for college, and also my first time doing an asynchronous class, I'm really paranoid. I don't want to fuck up. And that thought alone is weighing on me heavily. Like, so much so that it's becoming difficult to keep my eyes open. Hell, I tried distracting myself. I didn't do it just because I tried distracting myself, but I did try distracting myself from this by watching a show that I'm heavily affected by. I know I'm heavily affected by it emotionally because I heavily enjoy it. I love the show. I love the characters in it. I love the stories it represents. I love it. And it's a really good way of distracting yourself if you experience something you absolutely love. And that didn't really help. Even though the current story that was going on in the show did make me feel some incredible have some incredible emotions even though I've watched it before. The distraction didn't last very long afterwards. It it just kind of lingered and it's still there. Right now I can feel it gnawing at the back of my brain. It's it's like a boogeyman that just keeps moving, and I can't pinpoint it or what to do about it. It's just kind of there. It's it's one of those things where the fear itself isn't necessarily the issue, rather the effects the fear has on me. Like I said, this extreme paranoia, one, to not want to fuck up, but also two, to just do my absolute best, which I hope I do. I hope I'm capable of outputting my absolute best, but this fear, I don't see it as necessarily the worst thing ever. I think it's fine to have. I just think this paranoia, this one side effect of it, is just bad enough for me to want to be capable of discarding this fear altogether. It's it's incredibly mentally distressing, and my God, it's it feels like it's becoming too much to handle. It was nice to at the very least vocalize this, but I don't think I've come to any conclusions on what I can do about it. I guess one of them would be prove to myself that, well, you can make something of yourself. Oh. One, that you can make something of yourself. What am I listing? I do that too often, where I just start listing stuff and then don't know what I'm listing. But I need to show that I am capable of making something of myself, and that I am no longer a man who will, or I guess I am now a man who will not let myself devolve or regress into that state. I can I can be better than my past version of me, which I think has been a pretty clear issue I've had. That might be worth covering in my next fear video. Although honestly, I have so many thoughts on it right now, I could probably make the video now and then just post it later. I think I'll let myself. I think I'll let my mind marinate on that a bit. This this fear, this paranoia. I think it's gonna stick around, but I also think that given time, one, I'll be capable of proving that I am now an actual adult. I'm not just a fucking kid anymore. And two, no, what's with the two? Stop saying that shit, dude. Um, but I am an adult, and also that I will steadily grow to properly, I guess, function with this fear or cope with this fear, mentally cope instead of physically cope. Uh, I think it's pretty clear that this is causing me a lot of stress, but I am still like only 20, close to 21, so I got a long way to go. If I let every little bit of stress get to me, I'm gonna die in my 50s. But I guess that's just because I'm an anxious person. So I suppose that's all I really have left to say. And I guess I kind of followed the format of these videos pretty well, even though I wasn't mentally keeping track of it. So maybe I can do more spontaneous, sort of in the moment or whenever it just pops into my mind types of videos like types of versions like this. Now that I've got an actual format in my head, but aside from that, I will bid myself farewell and wish myself good luck on my endeavors to come. And for any of you who are watching who may relate, or really anyone who is watching at all, I also wish you good luck. We live in tumultuous times, and it seems like luck is the only comfort that actually exists. See myself next time. Stop.